Newsmax TV's post-debate special continues now. Jobs, taxes, ISIS, just three of the topics brought up during tonight's discussion. And throughout the 2 hours we spend with you tonight, I'll be joined by members of our Newsmax TV team and our special guest with reaction to what the candidates had to say. As a matter of fact, right now, let's go to our friend John Bachman, who's standing by with our Newsmax panel in our South Florida studio. John, you got a show of hands earlier. I suspect now you want to get some comments from the panel on the comments they heard tonight.
Yeah, JD, we're going to start back at the beginning of the debate. We want to focus in on that Marco Rubio comment about the welders. A lot of folks talking about that. But first, let's introduce you to our Newsmax panel. We'll start in the back row. We got Dick Farrell, radio talk show host right there, Dr. Lisa Palmer, a psychotherapist, and Lisa Ruth, not a doctor, but a former CIA officer, and Tom Wally, a retired police detective. And with us here, Javier Manjarres, and also Elaine Miller, an attorney, and a very active in charity and philanthropic events. And also we have John Brown, who many of you will recognize as well from regular appearances here on Newsmax TV. All right, the first clip we're going to play is Marco Rubio talking about welders versus philosophers. Let's take a listen.
Make higher education faster and easier to access, especially vocational training. For the life of me, I don't know why we have stigmatized vocational education. Welders make more money than philosophers. We need more welders and less philosophers.
All right, so this is obviously an attempt by Marco Rubio to reach a different kind of Republican voter, perhaps a Reagan Democrat or a working class voter. Let me see a show of hands. Who thinks that's going to work? Pretty much unanimous. John, we saw your hand go up pretty quick. Why do you think that would work?
It's exactly what Margaret Thatcher did in England. I don't know if it'll work for the Republican nomination, but it'll work if he gets the nomination and has to fight against Hillary for the election, the general election. Well,
Lisa Palmer, you were a little slower to raise your hand.
Well, because I feel like we need more welders and philosophers, and I am very much of an advocate for education, and so and I feel like that philosophers will help people to think better, and I think we need more knowledge and more thought process in this country. So welders and philosophers.
Spoken like a true psychotherapist, right? Using your mind a little bit there. Dick, let me ask you a question on that particular topic. Rubio has been talking about this line for a couple of days now. Do you think this is going to carry through as a theme throughout the rest of his candidacy?
No, it's a shot in the dark. I think Marco was watching the undercard debate when earlier this evening Bobby Jindal had mentioned pretty much the same thing about welders.
Okay. And what do you think it would take for somebody like Marco Rubio to have more appeal to someone who doesn't normally vote Republican?
Well, he doesn't look old enough for the job, to be quite honest. And with Donald Trump standing there and Jeb Bush and several others, he looks like he's on his first run, and he's running for maybe 2024. All
right. Well, Tom, you're shaking your head.
I disagree. I think Rubio actually gained a lot of ground tonight. I think he is appealing to, excuse the term, working class dogs, people that are out there that don't have college educations or they're semi-college. And I think he is the young upcoming star within the Republican Party. And I think he's been a sleeper. I think he's going to really tighten the percentage and move up closer to the top two.
I want to talk also about a part of the debate where Marco Rubio was conspicuously absent from this part of the debate. There was an exchange between Ohio Governor John Kasich and Donald Trump. Let's take a listen to that.
So, you know, the answer really is, if they've been law-abiding, they pay a penalty, they get to stay, we protect the wall, anybody else comes over, they go back. But for the 11 million people, come on, folks, we all know you can't pick them up and ship them back across the border. It's a silly argument. It's not an adult argument. It makes no sense. All I can say,
we have no choice. We have no choice.
No, he just mentioned my name.
Governor Bush.
Gerald, it was
what happened to my question?
You're not going to have my back. I'm going to have my back. Let me say a couple things here. First of all,
you should let Jeb speak.
We have grown.
No, it's unfair.
In the state of Ohio.
Governor.
All right, so we saw two different opinions there on what to do with the immigration issue. Show of hands if you think we're going to be able to send 11 million illegal immigrants back to their native countries.
All at once?
Over a period of time? Maybe perhaps all at once. All right, if you don't think that's possible, let's see some hands. All right. Elaine, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this. You seemed a little agitated during this exchange. Tell me why.
I don't think either of them, Kasich or Trump, detailed a plan of how to do this. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen any position papers. In fact, even the number that they mentioned, 11 million, I'd like to know how they reached that number. And what does that number include? There may be some that are totally deportable for various reasons. They may have had multiple convictions, and there may be some that have lived innocuous, peaceful lives all these years. There has to be different categorization for these different people that are here without proper documentation.
So perhaps you feel like the candidates are speaking in more platitudes, just trying to appease as many people as they can without getting to a real solution. Javier, I know you've obviously taken a closer look at this issue than most of us out there. But we didn't hear Marco Rubio chime in a lot during the immigration questions. And you wouldn't expect him to, because this is an area where a lot of folks say he's pretty vulnerable. Can he continue to do this?
No, and I think that if he would have spoken about it, I think he would have felt the wrath of Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump was ready to pounce on him on this, because Marco is rising the polls, and that's his Achilles heel is immigration reform. He flip-flopped, and he's backpedaling on that. He continues to backpedal. I think he's eventually going to have to come clean. I think it'll bode well for him if he actually apologizes one of these days and said, look, I made a mistake. And I think Americans are a forgiving country, and I think he'll do well if and when he does that, but I don't see him doing that anytime soon.
John, I see you nodding your head over there. Obviously, Marco Rubio can't run and hide on this issue for very long. Do you think he should apologize?
I don't know, he might, but I mean, basically I think this debate was a far higher standard than the last, and we're beginning to see the real people, rather than defending against insults, actually hearing their policies. And I think the crunch is going to happen for the Republican Party between those that mouth just political slogans of the old hat Republican Party and those who've got the courage to do what they say. And it stands out to me that Ted Cruz stands head and shoulders together with Trump. And I think people who have the courage, like Rand Paul, has the courage, but I don't think enough people have the guts to go and follow him. But these others, I mean, I think Jeb Bush and Kasich, I mean, they were whinging about their time, does them no good whatsoever. And they've got the same old policies. You know, America's not got to be the policeman, but got to be the leader. What on earth is the leader if it's not the policeman? I mean, if you want to protect everybody in the world that he wants to protect, you've got to have force to do it. And I think they're just mouthing old-fashioned words, and they just lack the guts. And the guts come from people. He's exhibited it time and time again, Cruz and Trump.
We heard J.D. allude to the tag team match that we saw on the immigration issue, Ted Cruz and Donald Trump versus John Kasich and Jeb Bush. We also heard from both Rubio and Ted Cruz talk about their shared immigration background with their parents. Ted Cruz obviously advocating very strongly for a very strong border security. Do you think that gives him the moral high ground on the issue,
yes,
John?
Strong border controls and legal immigration is what he stands for, rather than letting off all the illegals. We have a country of law, and people that have disobeyed the law should be punished for it. And all this twaddle about communities breaking up, those are the wrong communities if they're illegal.
Yes, also to note, Ben Carson, who also could be taken as being a little bit weak when it comes to the issue of immigration, very quiet during that issue as well.
Squishy on immigration.
People
need to call him out on that.
Yeah, and then nobody did really call him out. We heard that Donald Trump wasn't going to hit Ben Carson too hard, and we didn't really see anybody get hit too hard in this debate. We're going to come back and talk to some more of our panelists very soon here, but for now, we'll send it back to J.D.